Similar is also the case with those who seek guidance from their inner voice, as they call it. I have come across people who lay great stress upon their inner voice, which they think to be the real guide in all controversial matters arising in the mind. We have concrete examples of people relying on their so called inner voice who are found to have been misled in the spiritual field. Really, what they think to be their inner voice or an impulse from the departed soul is only the play of their undisciplined mind. This undesirable practice, if followed for some time, makes the mind so very unduly powerful and overactive that it begins to question and answer by itself. This the people often misunderstand as the stage of yogic attainment where one acquires the power to intercommune with departed souls. They are really far away from it. The inner voice or the voice of the real self is no doubt never misleading. But how many are there who are advanced enough to catch it? To most of those who profess to follow the inner voice, it is quite inaudible. They are merely being fooled by the wonder working tendencies of the mind, which can create anything and everything by itself. It can even present fearful ghosts to their view or make them hear strange voices in trees and stones. This is all due to the activities of the mind in its undisciplined and polluted state. Unless the coverings of Mala, Vikshepa, and Avarana are removed and the mind is brought to a state of perfect poise and moderation, inspiration or guidance from the inner voice is meaningless. Most of those who pose to follow the inner voice or seek guidance from a departed soul are really following the dictates of their own unregulated and undisciplined mind. It is mere hallucination. If we develop this vicious habit, we are lost forever. It leads us to constant mental worry and harassment. I know of a gentleman, prominent among the so called Bhaktas, who professed that he had secured direct connection with the soul of Tulsidas, the author of the Ramayana, whom he had taken as his guru. He went on for some time, feeling exultant over this supposed achievement. Later on, a discord arose between him and his celestial guru, which soon developed into a bitter quarrel, on account of which, as he used to say, he was constantly belabored and harassed mentally, with the result that his mental equilibrium was almost shattered and he felt extremely miserable. It was after 2 years of hard labor with him that he was cured of this evil. Then he was able to understand that it was all an illusion or self deception, and what he understood to be the inspiration from the soul of Tulsi Das was really the magic play of his own undisciplined mind. Since he has been relieved of that miserable state, he now feels peace and tranquility restored to him. The inner voice is, in fact, the voice of mind in its perfectly pure state. Unless the mind is cleared of all pollutions and defilements and is brought to a state of perfect peace and moderation, it can never reflect the inner voice. In fact, for one whose mind is perfectly pure, it is his inner voice alone that always speaks, and the impulse from highly developed, liberated souls continues to flow to him continuously. The practice is thus evidently very dangerous and in most cases leads to disastrous results. The realization of God, which has so far been considered to be extremely difficult, requiring hard labor and persistent efforts for many lives, is not really so. God is simple and can be achieved by equally simple means. The hard and fast rules of life and tiring practices prescribed by teachers for realization have really made matters so complicated that people are led to believe it to be beyond their power and capacity. I may assure you very sincerely that realization is not at all a difficult thing, if only you earnestly divert your attention to it. An iron will to achieve the goal, together with proper means and guidance, is the only thing required for complete success. Spiritual training starts with inner cleaning or the purification of chakras, which is the most essential factor in spiritual advancement. Thus, the right type of training in spirituality begins with inner cleaning, which, if neglected, will lead to the abuse of power acquired through yogic means. Hatha Yoga lays down mostly physical practices to effect cleaning, some of which are too hard and tedious for all and sundry. While under the system of Sahajmarg, it is accomplished by easy mental practices aided by the power transmitted by the teacher. Some of the teachers of religion often insist upon people devoting as many as 8 hours a day to practicing certain mechanical exercises in order to keep their mind occupied in divine thoughts. I strongly condemn the type of training which enforces practices that tax the brain or overburden the brain. The natural result of such training is that the mind finds no scope for expansion and consequently the power of realization grows dull. It is just like thrashing a boy in order to induce him to concentrate. Strenuous labor with long and tedious physical practices, as commonly recommended by teachers, in order to effect the molding of mind or the cleaning of the chakras, is consequently not of much avail. For this purpose, we utilize our thought power in a proper way under the guidance of a powerful master who is capable of removing complexities and entanglements that hinder our progress and who transmits into us the force necessary for the upkeep of our spiritual life. The simplified course of spiritual training has rendered the highest spiritual flight possible for everyone, whether man, woman, young or old, grihastha or virakta. The preliminary step in the right type of training is that the aspirant's tendencies of mind be directed towards God. For this, the learned teachers of religion mostly prescribe physical practices of body and mind picked up from religious books. People often find it a hard task to follow them, and thus they remain lingering on indefinitely in the beginning, with no further progress. A capable teacher should do this by his own effort, exercising the power of transmission in order to create a permanent and deep rooted effect.